not really sure how things transpired in my mind, but I was thinking how much Americans love bargains. Anybody here like a bargain, like a good deal? You drive 20 miles to save 2 cents on gas? Anybody like that? I think Americans love a good deal. Garage sales. I am not a fan of garage sales, doing them or going to them, but I know a lot of people. Anybody here like garage sales? A lot. Just that's it. Those are the only people that are honest. A lot of people like garage sales, and this is the way it always goes for me, because somebody has, or we have a blue blazer. Let's say I have this blue blazer there, and I paid, I don't know, $150, $200, I don't know. I paid that much for it, and there's that blue blazer, which I've worn proudly for many years, and it's for sale for 50 cents. And then the first person who comes up to buy it looks at me and says, "Will you take a quarter?" Yeah, I just don't get it. I don't understand it, but I know that is the attitude and the mentality that goes, we love a good deal. And it's not just limited to the thrift shops or garage sales or flea markets. It kind of pervades everything. I mean, we even have trouble when we buy a house or a car. We always have to qualify or quantify it by saying, oh, you know, I got a really good deal. It's like we can't own it. There's something different. And we're always discouraged when somebody gets a better deal. Everybody wants a great deal. Everybody wants the cheapest price possible. But the flip side is, lest we forget, the flip side is nothing is free. Nothing's free. I learned that years ago as a teenager when I worked in a grocery store, and the 4th of July rolls around, and the grocery store runs a huge ad on hot dogs and hot dog buns. Huge ad, and everybody comes in to buy the hot dogs and the hot dog buns. And the night before, we spent all night marking up hamburgers and hamburger buns and Coke and beer and all the other stuff that goes with the hot dog and the hot dog buns. Why? Because nothing is free. It's just the way it is. Nothing is free. Somebody paid something, somewhere, somehow for everything, right? Is that right? Except God's love and grace. God's love and grace, we are told repeatedly in Scripture, is free. That despite our attitude or our approach, our actions, like the rain that poured down on us this past week, God's love and God's mercy is dispersed. It says it rains on the just and the unjust. It is dispersed upon all of us, pouring divine love and mercy in order to call, grasp, hold, change, mold, forgive, and better us. It's just there. But let me clarify and let us remember, because this is a significant point. There is a difference between cheap and free. There is a difference between getting something cheap and something that is free. Cheap is cheap. Free implies that somebody gave it, somebody put value and investment into it in order that it could happen. So God's grace may be free, but it is not cheap. It came at a cost. The cross, as a central symbol within Christianity, reminds us of that. And we often quote the Gospel of John, "For God so loved the world, God gave the Son." God's grace and love and mercy are free, but they are not cheap. The only way they can be cheapened is by us. Years ago, when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, that was a time, and we didn't have all these activities kids had today. You either played track, basketball, or football, or you were in band. Well, I wasn't big enough for football, and I wasn't tall enough for basketball, and I wasn't fast enough for track, so guess what? Band. And I decided I would play a trumpet. Trumpet's a manly, your kids are thinking, I don't want to play. Anyway, you know how kids think, and let's face it. So my parents, being smart individuals, said, well, this might be a whim, this may not be something, and they got me a used trumpet, which I played for several years. But as I invested myself into it and became better at it, and the quality expected from my instructors and from those around me rose, I asked my parents for a better instrument. Okay? And at great expense, at least then, my parents went out and purchased a Con 60B trumpet, silver-plated, 1970. It cost $500. Now, as I recall, my brother bought a car, a Chevy Nova, for about $1,800 around that same time, which tells you at least the dollars value associated with this instrument. But that's not the point. The point is, I can say this cost $500, but the real value of it could only be increased or diminished by what? By me. By how I used it. The value of the instrument cannot be quantified or qualified in dollars and cents or something you can write down on paper. It is much bigger, and it depends on the person who is using it and the joy it brings to other people as they listen and they share in what the instrument can produce. You see, there is a difference between cost and value. There is a difference between something that is cheap and something that is free. What our scriptures are saying, what Jesus is saying to his disciples, when he says you must hate your mother and your father and love me more, it's lost a little in translation. Luke translates that one word as hate. It's softened a bit if you go to Matthew's recollection of it. But if you go to the original Aramaic, or the common language that Jesus would have spoken, it doesn't mean to get angry at them or turn away or despise them like we would associate with hate. The Aramaic word means to love them less than me. Unless you love your parents less than you love me, unless I become the priority, God becomes the directive within your existence, you're going to find it hard to follow me. It's a high price, no doubt. But he's saying to them, it is a huge investment that will make a difference in their being, in their spirit, in their direction of their life, and eventually the world. People often say, if you ask people what their priorities are in life, people will say, God, family, country. I hear that all the time. What are the most important? God, family, country. But when you look at how they live, it can be family, country, God, or it can be country, family, God, or it can be all kinds of other things. There is a difference between what we affirm or say we affirm and how we actually live. And Jesus says, well, those other things and all sorts of other things are important to have in your life, but unless you place your prime directive, you keep the main thing, it's hard to keep it straight. When you have that outer convictions towards a higher calling and those different ideals, everything else begins to sort itself out differently. When God is first, we don't know where we will be led, because the way God calls us is invariably unpredictable. But Jesus says it becomes worth more than anything else. There's an old saying that you and I can count the number of seeds in an apple, but only God can count the number of apples in a seed. It becomes that way with ourselves, when we look at ourselves, when we think of and imagine ourselves, what we can do, what we're called to do, what the possibilities are, we only see this much, and God knows so much more. But the main thing must stay the main thing. A few years back, Will Willimon, very well known, he was recently retired as the Methodist Bishop of Alabama. How he ended up there, I'll never know, because for most of his career, he wrote hundreds of books when he was the chaplain at Duke University. In one of those books, he recalls a story of an angry father who calls him up. He holds Willimon directly accountable for the fact that his daughter has just informed him that she is going to throw away her education, in the words of the father, and go with a Presbyterian group and do mission work in Haiti. The father says, that's absurd. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in mechanical engineering from Duke University, and now she's going to go dig ditches in Haiti. Willimon admits that his not-so-pretty side came out at one point of this berating, and he said, well, I doubt that she received much training in the engineering department here for digging ditches, but she's a fast learner and will probably get the hang of ditch digging in just a few months. Which the father didn't find funny at all. And he continued, this is no joke. You are completely irresponsible. You have encouraged my daughter to do this, and I hold you accountable and will follow this through. Well, as the conversation went out, Dr. Willimon pointed out to the father, he says, well, think about this. It's not just me. When she was young, you had her baptized. When she got older, she was confirmed. You had her in Sunday school. You had her in youth group. You're the one who introduced her to Jesus. To which the father replied, yeah, but we only did that because we wanted her to be a good Presbyterian. We didn't want her to go to Haiti. You see the difference? What's of value? What's of worth? What's important? Why do we do what we do? Was her time earning her degree wasted? The father paid a lot of money for what his daughter was going to do, and ultimately, the dollar and cents payback would not be commensurate. But does that mean it had no value? And if it had value, was the value her making that decision less or greater than what the father valued in his life? You have to decide. Actually, we all have to decide, for God's grace is free, but it is not cheap. There was and there will be a cost associated with it, a cost that comes with our investment that changes us. Bargain hunting may be appropriate for garage sales, but not at the cost of diminishing or devaluing our spirits and our souls. And that's really what Jesus is trying to say in this passage and at other times again and again. He's asking us to consider what's really important. He's asking us to think about what carries value in our lives. What's our response to God's love and God's grace? He's asking us, what will you do?